now, but I will give it a little bit time of tolerance because I know that it takes a while to go live.
So there's nothing I can tell you when you appear on my
Okay,
YouTube
we're
video.
live. Hi everybody and welcome. This is the Apostate Prophet. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I am here today finally with my dear guest Jimmy from the UK. We've been wanting to go live for quite a long time now, but I'm always all over the place. I'm never well organized, which is also the reason why I am 9 minutes late. But I'm only late here in this case because I just keep all those people in mind who cannot make it in time and who want to view this chat. And I feel like it would be disrespectful of me to start it directly on time and make all those people miss the live chat. So. Of course, I'm just not well organized. Hi, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much, Jimmy. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm really pleased to be here. I've always put it down to your homophobia that it took so long to get to me on your list of apostates, but I'm pleased that you finally got around.
Oh wait, you're gay, right? I totally forgot that. Oh, okay. That's it, everybody. We have to leave now. That's it. Homophobia. I am pretty homophobic, actually. A lot. No, I'm not. So, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. It's quite a busy time of the year for us, actually, but it's been it's good. It's good. We're doing a lot of work in terms of Free Hearts, Free Minds, helping people in Muslim majority countries who are like apostates, who need mental health support. So that's kind of ramped up a bit in terms of activity. That's keeping me busy at the moment. But other than that, I'm doing okay. Yeah, I think.
Go.
Yeah, I feel we're in a bit of a weird space. It feels like we're fighting battles. I don't know about yourself, on very many fronts at the moment in terms of just trying to carry the ex-Muslim movement and the voices forward. Because as well as having to fight with everybody who thinks that we shouldn't have the right to blaspheme or insult Islam or say anything bad about this perfect religion from people in the Muslim community, there's also this leftist crowd who you expected to be on your side because you're campaigning for human rights, and in my case, campaigning a lot for LGBT rights, right? So gay rights generally. And these voices that I thought would jump up in support because they've always had a history of challenging religious homophobia aren't, actually. And not only are they not, it's not as if they're remaining silent, they're actually seeking to curtail our self-expression or demonize us for, accusations of Islamophobia or anti-Muslim bigotry and all of that sort of stuff, or empowering the far right. And as we fight that battle for gay rights, we're also fighting against the far right who don't want us to have those rights. So sometimes that can feel a lot. Yeah, it feels like you're fighting a battle on very many fronts. And I think today, so as you ask me how I'm doing, today I'm just quite present to that because it feels like there's been a lot of that recently.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned, in the West, it is, of course, the whole human rights issues. There's a lot of stuff going on. We have so many voices, so much struggle. The political left is always there to speak about human rights. But as you have said, there's this big thing going on. This big issue going on when it comes to Islam. For example, it was last year, I believe, right, where there was this. There was a controversy about certain schools in the UK where Muslims demanded that they wouldn't that they shouldn't teach their children about sexuality and stuff like that. It wasn't just about that. The protests took a very ugly turn where the Muslim families, the adults, the parents came and expressed very disturbing views to the public. On TV, live on TV, to journalists, to others among themselves. They screamed in public about how disgusting gay people are and stuff like that, and nothing happened really on the political left. Like it was kind of went unnoticed. The same people who are always very loud when this comes from the Christian corner, when similar things, or when when certain things like that come from a Christian corner or from Western corners, those who are very loud about that completely ignored that stuff, and we see that same fashion all the time when it comes to Islam.
Yeah.
That's a very common thing. What do you think that is about? Do you think that will change? Do you think there is some change to that going on?
Will it change? I hope it will change, Rizwan. I really do hope it will change. And I think actually maybe I see it as our responsibility for those of us who are in the public arena having these dialogues, that actually part of the role of these conversations is to influence people using our ideas and using our voices. The incident that you describe, which is often referred to the Birmingham anti-LGBT protests, it might be useful to give some context, because I know that your viewers are quite international, aren't they? So would it be helpful to give some context, and then we can look at the nuances of that, actually, because it was literally crazy. So what happened was, we had in 2010 all of our equality legislation, so whether it was around gender or sexuality or race relations, all consolidated into one item called the Equality Act. And that covered all of the protected characteristics. So whether it was about gender, race, sexuality, whether it was about disability, all of that was covered in this one act. And so recently, assistant head teacher Andrew Moffat, he's a white gay guy. He designed a program called No Outsiders. His thinking was, actually, if we start implementing the teachings around the ethos of the Equality Act at a young age in primary school, well, then people won't grow up trying to treat other people like they're outsiders. If we start teaching them that all races are equal, that all sexualities are equal, that if you have a single parent family, it's not right to treat a child from a single parent family different to somebody from a family with two parents. And if a family has two dads, then actually it's not right to bully that kid because their family have got two dads as opposed to a mum and a dad. All sounds really quite harmless and a brilliant idea. So as they were teaching in schools, in Muslim schools in Birmingham, well, they weren't Muslim schools, they're state schools in Birmingham, but some of these schools have got like 90%, 99% Muslim populations. So as they were teaching this, some kids were going home saying, "Mum, at school they said that I can be a girl," or a little boy might go home and say, "Mum, they said that I can be a girl, or I might be a boy in a girl's body or a girl in a boy's body. Mum, they said it's okay to be gay. I can be gay when I grow up. I can be gay." And so the Muslim parents had a bit of a meltdown about this, and decided to get really mobilized. And there's some indication that actually the Christian right were involved in this as well, but certainly the predominant reaction that was trying to cease this teaching was from the Muslim community in Birmingham, which is quite homogenous, actually. There's not like loads of, it's quite consolidated because it's a diaspora community. So when people emigrate, they tend to emigrate and live in the local community next to other people of their same host countries of origin. So the protest really, they were really quite crazy. So you had like maybe the school over here, and then literally opposite, outside the entrance of the school, one of the schools, there was like a big van with a platform, with speakers, with megaphones on the platforms, saying no to Andrew Moffat, no to his No Outsiders program. You're compromising our religion. You're trying to teach people it's okay to be gay. That was a big narrative that they were challenging, which was that you're trying to teach people it's okay to be gay. We say no to you, Andrew Moffat. It's not okay. Shame on you, shame. And then they were getting like these 8, 9, 10-year-olds, like 7-year-olds, whatever age these primary school children were, getting them all to start chanting with the parents, saying, shame, 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 shame. Like whenever they were articulating something around this program that teaches essentially equality. And it's important to understand that the program didn't just focus on trans rights or gay rights. It focused on disability, it focused on race, all of the protected characteristics that fall underneath the Equality Act. So, for someone like me who knew he was gay probably around 12, 13, or was starting to figure that out, you can imagine that there's pupils in this crowd of Muslim people. Everyone's chanting shame, 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 shame about homosexuality, and you then as a child, you're kind of obligated to join in, aren't you? Because like your parents are joining in, your cousins are joining in, your neighbors are joining in, so all of a sudden you're now chanting shame, 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 shame about homosexuality, and you might be coming to this realization that you yourself are actually gay, and it really can be quite damaging to somebody by shaming them around their sexuality. And we see that manifest in a myriad of ways as gay people grow up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So there was all of that happening. There was some onus on the education system, because what they said to schools was at an age-appropriate time you can teach this. They didn't say at what age you should teach it. So leaving that window for people gave the Muslim community some inroads to say, well, actually, you shouldn't be teaching it to them in primary school, you should be teaching it to them in secondary school. We don't want them to learn at the age of 6, 7, 8 that it's okay to be gay. And I think, Ridwan, for people like you and me who have come from that community, we understand why that is, because actually what they want to teach you first is actually that gay people should be killed. Like that actually, essentially, it's haram to be gay in a Sharia compliant society. If men are found to be gay, or actually, there's hadith talking about how these men should be punished, and that's through execution. And then, just so that people know how bad that is, it's not like the scholastic dialogue stops at this idea of execution. You then have further scholastic dialogue around what is the appropriate way to kill a gay person. So, is it hanging him? Is it following the hadith, like in Iran, they'll hang them? Is it like in the hadith where you throw them off a rooftop? Should you stone them to death, like in maybe Afghanistan? Or should you do decapitation? So there's actually ways to discourse around what is the most pleasing way for Allah around to kill a gay person, and there's conversations around that. So the Muslim community were really pushing back on this program, and then there was 2 schools that were mainly involved in it, and there was some pausing of the program taking place as whilst they were trying to engage with the community. But I think the understanding of what the term engagement is was maybe interpreted differently by the Muslim community as to how we might interpret it. So I think there was a thinking that actually engagement means you're engaging with us, you're going to stop the program. But actually that's not what engagement means. Engagement is we're going to let you know what's going on. This is a school, nobody gets to tell us what we teach apart from national curriculum, which is instituted nationwide, and you don't get to say, well, actually in this Muslim community we're not going to teach gay stuff. That's not okay. That's not how the national curriculum works.
So that was the case, right? This is a national curriculum. So the Muslims in Birmingham and in those regions, in those Muslim-dominant regions, just learn what is widely taught in England or in the UK. I don't know how it works. Is it in England or in the entire UK? I don't know, but they basically learn what is nationwide taught. It is not region-specific where they can just pick and choose what they want to teach.
Certainly not. Yeah, okay. So certainly not. It's a national curriculum, and the clue is in the name, right? It's the curriculum for the nation. So,
do families have the option, the right, the option to send their children to a special, different school, to a religious school, or to a different school if they don't want to participate in the national education?
So you have got the option of sending your children to a religious school. So you have like Islamic schools, you have Jewish schools, you have Catholic schools. You do have those options, but these are not those schools, yeah. But the composition in terms of the demographic of those schools, some of them are like 90% plus Muslim. So I think for the parents, in some ways, what they were saying, actually, not in some ways, they were actually articulating. This is a Muslim community. And so accordingly, you shouldn't be teaching this in the Muslim community. But actually, as a nation, what we don't do is split ourselves down into separate communities. We're like, this is Great Britain, we're all the community of Great Britain. You don't break it down so that one population has some special treatment and another population doesn't have that treatment. You keep that education consistent. And I think there was some responsibility in terms of the government giving this window of saying actually teach it at a time and engage with the community as to when it's appropriate. Because, you know, I guess you and I know there's never an appropriate time in the Muslim community to teach people that it's okay to be gay. Like, that's just, no one's ever gonna like say, oh, you know, this is the time, guys, they're 16 now, let's teach them it's okay to be gay, because that's so counter our narrative. And maybe just to equip you with some data around that. So in the UK, at the last poll, which was done by a credible polling organisation on Muslim attitudes, they showed that 52% of the British Muslims polled said that homosexuality should be illegal, so it should be criminalised. Yeah,
and none of them, like, wasn't there a thing where 0% agreed that it's okay to be gay or something?
That it was moral. Yeah, 0% said that it was moral. That was several years before the poll that I'm saying. So the one that I'm quoting is the most recent one. Okay. So 52% said it should be criminalized because they want it to be illegal. Yeah, and I think sometimes people can think, well, 48% are okay with it. That's not the case. So when you look at those numbers, only 18% said it shouldn't be criminalized, and the rest were on the I don't know, I don't have an opinion type thing.
That's the strange thing. There's this huge hypocrisy going on. I mean, on the one hand, they argue, and people who defend that position argue that it is the Muslim community and they for themselves can decide what they take in, what they don't take in, what they teach and don't teach. But then you see that people actually those people actually take a stance on a national level and want homosexuality to be criminalized on a national level. So it is not, when it comes to reality, just the community. It's not just among Muslims themselves. They directly want homosexuality, for example, to be outlawed in the world or in the nation. So it's
yeah, that's a good point, and I wonder at the accuracy of it. So maybe let's just interrogate that a little. I certainly think that actually for those Muslims who were campaigning in this instance, like if they could have a Sharia compliant society for Muslims only, that would be a good first step. They'd probably be content with that to begin with, right? But then they'd want Sharia eventually to take over the rest of the place. For those people who do want Sharia, and that isn't a huge number actually in the UK. I think the Pew Research did a poll on that and the numbers weren't crazily high. But in that same poll in the UK, as well as 52% saying it should be criminalised, 47% said that gay people shouldn't be allowed to be teachers. So we see that statistic, and then we see the way they went after Andrew Moffat, and are chanting his name and saying he should be ashamed and such because he's an assistant head teacher in a school. And for me, there's a correlation between those two things. And then obviously hand in hand with these numbers, because wherever you see homophobia, you tend to see misogyny. 49% of British Muslims polled said that a wife should be obedient to her husband. And these are some really backwards, like barbaric ideas that we're seeing manifest here. And more credit to the teachers of those schools who refused to back down. They kept on maintaining that actually, look, you can't pick and choose your equality. Okay. If you want equality for Muslims, which is covered by the Equality Act, then you also have to have equality for gay people as well. And in those same books and collection of No Outsiders, there were things about not disrespecting people because they're a different religion, accepting people because they've got a different religion to you as well. Of course, those bits of the curriculum were absolutely fine. The bits that favoured that community.
I mean, there is this thing going on. You pointed it out earlier a few times, but when I was looking at those news, I saw this thing, for example, like some people were making the excuse that they are not, completely ideologically against it, but they don't think that children should be taught at that age what to think about these issues. But there is a huge hypocrisy going on there, because you and I both know. I learned as a child. I learned to have an opinion on this matter. I learned a little bit what it is and what an opinion to have. And what I learned was basically that this is a disgusting, immoral evil that is in Islam treated with violence, with death, with the death penalty. And what's funny is, I mean, you learn stuff about sex when you are a child already. You learn that. I mean, I learned that I was going to, if I die, that I was going to have my sexy wives in heaven that I will have eternally sex with, that only exist there to give me pleasure in heaven all the time. So you learn to subjugate these servants in heaven. You learn that in an Islamic society there would be slaves for those who fight in the way of Allah. You learn all these things. So it is not really about not learning certain things as a child. It is not about time. It is not about that. It is not about going into topics. It is just that Muslims don't want that certain education that the UK wants to give them, while wanting to be part of the society, and while wanting to benefit from a certain sentiment of equality. I'm not speaking. I'm not saying all Muslims. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm speaking of those who participate in this kind of activity, who make these demands. While they want certain kinds of equality, they reject other kinds of equality, and they reject the certain kind of equality that comes from the country that they live in, which the majority of the country's population agrees to. So
yeah, and I think so again, and I think that's why it's so important to use data, actually, because you said not all Muslims, and so this was why I'm trying to be very clear that actually when we do this poll, it's 52% who say it should be criminalized and 18% who say it shouldn't be criminalized. And 18% is a good number. Like, it's not amazing, right? Because when you compare it to the wider UK society, you're looking at about 70 to 80% saying that actually it should be fine to be gay, and they haven't got a problem with it. But we know that if you went back 20 years, that number for the UK's acceptance overall, it would be significantly lower. Similarly, if you went back 20 years in the Muslim community, you probably wouldn't be hitting double digits, right? So it's important to acknowledge that progress at 18%, but it's also important to acknowledge, why are we consistently the worst? Like when it comes to homophobia, why are we consistently the most homophobic community in the world? So when we look at America, there was a recent poll in America that showed 51% of Muslims in America were in favor of equality for gay people, and I think it was specifically around marriage equality in that poll. So now you have some people, some Muslim people, particularly in the LGBT community, who are saying most Muslims in America are in favor of gay marriage, which is technically true, which is technically 51%, right? But then when you go into that same study and you look at the numbers and you say, okay, the 51% say that they're okay with gay marriage. Out of the different religious denominations, which one is the highest in terms of standing against and thinking that it's not okay for gay marriage? And, a random guess, Ridwan, which faith group do you think it is that stands in opposition the most to homosexual marriage in America?
Muslims?
Yes. Genius. And not only do they stand in the most, but I think they're about 14 percentage points higher than the next highest. So this framing of it as most Muslims in America are okay with gay marriage, it doesn't present the complete picture. And I think you're right, it's so important to be like, listen, not all Muslims, right? But actually, if we look at the UK, not all Muslims want homosexuality to be criminalized, but most do.
I want to add something to the whole thing, to the whole. Sorry, I interrupted you. I
It's
tend
okay.
to do that sometimes because I'm a very rude person. But
I'll blame it on your homophobia. It's okay.
no, I point this out very often. But when I talk about the Muslim community in America, for example, the American Muslim community is very different from Muslims on other sides of the world, and
Yeah.
I think there are many factors to it. Among them is the fact that America is so far away from the Muslim world, the fact that America is so large, and Muslim people are often individuals and don't communicate very much with large Muslim groups, which is why they mix more into the society and adopt their way of thinking. And there are so many more factors. People who go to America, Muslims who go to America, are usually those kinds of Muslims who rather want to leave something behind, or leave something behind and go to a more secular, more Western society. It is not like in Europe. In Europe, for example, Muslim societies are often societies that don't want to abandon their home, but that want to live in Europe while also going to their home country like every year or every other year. So there's always this strong traditional connection going on with European Muslims, whereas in America that is not really the case, which is why
Yeah.
the Muslims in America are often very much less religious, are very different. And you even see that religious organizations in America, Muslim religious organizations, are very different, even if they are extreme, are very different from European Muslim organizations, and they try to talk more to moderate Muslims and moderate voices. So you can really not at all take American Muslims as an example to represent Muslims in the world. There is a
Yeah.
huge discrepancy between what American Muslims believe in and what Muslims in the world believe in. A huge one.
And I think also they have a stronger sense of national identity. Like Americans are like, we're really American, like we're American. You don't really have that in the UK at all, actually. It's not a thing. People aren't like, we're British, we're really proud to be British. I think there's some of that surfacing now, actually. But generally speaking, it's not the same as it is in America. And I think that plays a huge role in it, because then in the UK, British Muslims are Muslim first. Yeah. And I was raised to be like, before any nationality, whether it's Pakistani or whether it's British, I was Muslim first. And so that is the unifying factor of the Ummah. We're all Muslims, and so therefore Islam is what comes first. And where Islam comes into conflict with any teachings with the country that I am living in, well, Islam is correct, not the legislation or the ethos or the thinking of the country that I'm living in. And I think I'm not sure, and I'm not convinced that you have that to the same extent in America, and that plays a critical difference.
I would say that 9/11 also, for example, is a factor. I was in Germany when 9/11 happened. I was still a kid, and I remember the sentiments which over the years afterward, when I looked back and thought about them, I just felt disgusted by it for many years, and especially after I left Islam and I started thinking back about the reactions of the Muslims surrounding me in response to 9/11, I felt extremely disgusted about it. I will never stop saying this, but it is simply the truth that the average response that I saw from the supposedly normal, indifferent, moderate, peaceful Muslims around me was that they were
celebratory.
They were celebrating.
Yeah.
They were celebrating among each other. They were making excuses. They were saying, "Well, they get what they deserve." While outside, they were like, yeah. But in America, you can't really quite have the same sentiment. I guess in America, if you are a Muslim, there is something to it. I mean, you don't have that strong Muslim community that encourages you to be proud of the suffering of non-Muslims, and you learn more to kind of feel a little bit shame about what happened, and to reorganize your thoughts and your positions and your beliefs accordingly. I would say, I don't know.
So that definitely has a geopolitical connotation to it, doesn't it? I think this idea that America is the demon policeman of the world who is bombing Muslims every single way that they go. And so therefore, when September 11th happened, I mean, for me, when I saw Muslims celebrating, I was astonished. Yeah, like I was astonished. So I think I was kind of well into my questioning of the faith by that point, and really coming to terms with my sexuality. And so Islam just wasn't right. Like, it was quite clear that there were issues with it. So seeing that celebration was a bit like, crikey, this ideology really does warp your brain. And I think I was more aware of that because as a gay man, there were points in my life where I thought, well, gay people should be executed. Even though I'm gay, I kind of believed that myself. So I guess maybe I was quite present to the ability of the ideology to really shape your thinking in ways that were quite counter human kindness, you know, like it was really quite counter to how my empathy would run as a human being. And this ideology was able to warp it to the point where I felt that actually, you know, maybe if I did act out my homosexuality, maybe I too should be killed for that, because it's a benevolent act. Like, you're doing me a favor as well by stopping me from committing these sins. Can I just go back to the Birmingham protest, because there's a nuance in this, which is about the initial conversation about, you know, this left that just abandons you. So you said, actually, you know, and you articulated it brilliantly, that actually there's silence, whereas if it was Christian people doing this, how much noise there would be around that group in terms of in the press and all of the challenge towards it, maybe counter-protests and all of that. But because it was Muslims, and I think predominantly Pakistani Muslims who were doing that protest, we didn't really see that. So an organization formed in Birmingham called Seeds, and it was called Supporting Education and Diversity, something like that, yeah? And it was a lot of LGBT people, a lot of humanists. The group was, one of the leads of the group was a Pakistani lesbian. And what happened was a number of people from the gay community said, listen guys, it's time to do a counter-protest to show them that there is an opposition to this barbarism. And the group kind of said, no, we're not going to have a counter-protest. We don't want to have friction in front of children, because it's just not going to be good for the children's welfare to have two groups shouting across the road outside the school at each other. So a lot of people acquiesced to that, and they thought, actually, that's a sensible idea. It's not about traumatizing kids watching adults fight. And so the counter-protest didn't take place. And then there was some legal involvement, and an injunction was passed where it prohibited the protest from taking place outside the school. So it had to take place down the road in this kind of green area that was there, and the Muslims who were protesting began protesting there. Before this happened, though, this is appalling, a number of gay people from Seeds went down at night time, because they didn't want to go in the day and have fights with people in front of the school. So they went down at night time and they hung little pictures or rainbows on the school gates to say to the school, listen, we're supporting your endeavour, we really appreciate that you're not backing down on this and you're standing firm. And they had even contacted the school to say, listen, to the headmistress, is it okay for us to come and do this? So when they went down in the night, poor white people, they had no idea that Muslims are staying up all night for fasting, like, because that's when it was happening, right? So these guys turn up, and then the Muslim people start throwing eggs at them. And, you know, and this is like a few lesbian women. There wasn't a huge number, like a few lesbian women are there, some gay guys are there, and there's just like Muslim people saying, you know, get the hell away from that gate. You're coming into our community, look what you're doing. Then they tried to spin it. Some people started to film them, saying, look at these people coming in to our community, trying to cause trouble, trying to harass us during Ramadan. And then somebody starts pelting eggs at them. And so obviously they kind of depart. And I spoke to one of the people who was there, and she was telling me how scary it was. She was like, you know, we were really quite intimidated. Somebody made a phone call, a load more Muslim men came down. And you know how gender segregated we are. So at that time of night, it's not going to be Muslim women coming out at that hour. It's going to be the Muslim men marching down to show their, you know, physical masculinity and generate a climate of fear and intimidation. A climate of fear and intimidation, which is what Muslim gay people are born into, actually. Yeah, so they just kind of brought that climate with them, started throwing eggs, and these people then left. And of course, can you imagine if if any other sort of group, if white people were throwing eggs at Pakistanis, how crazy the media would go with that. But when it was Pakistanis throwing eggs at white gays, I think there was like a one article in the Birmingham Press about it or something like that, and it certainly wasn't drumming up the attention that it would drum up if those racial positions were reversed. Yeah. So after that, there was the injunction. People had to protest away from the school, and then again at that point, some of the gay people said, "Listen, the protest isn't outside the school anymore, so let's do a counter protest because it's not going to be around the children." And this is where things get really crazy. So in terms of identity politics and logic. So a bunch of white gay people go stand across the road with their rainbow flags, their guitar, and they start strumming love songs, right? They're just playing their guitar, some white gays and white lesbians playing their guitar, singing love songs as a protest to these people who are saying, don't teach people it's okay to be gay, and standing in gender segregated positions, like the men over here, the women over there, and they're just playing their guitar, and then and so that finished, and then in the national UK press, the Pakistani lesbian from Seeds was interviewed in this article, and she said that the white gay people protesting against the Pakistani homophobes was neo-colonialist. So because basically it was just white people protesting brown people. So essentially dressing up white gay people protesting against homophobia, dressing it up as some form of racism. Yeah? And this is what I mean about the craziness in the left now. So there's this bombastic narrative in the gay community that the gay community is Islamophobic, that white gay men are now like the new devils in the gay community. Like white gay men are privileged, white lesbians are privileged as well, because they get to be born into this society that doesn't hate them, and actually Muslim people, we don't have that privilege. And there's something really pernicious about that framing of the conversation. So we know that actually homophobia in every community, just like misogyny, any sort of human rights, develops because of scrutiny. Yeah, like you take the issue at hand, you place it under scrutiny, and that then causes focus on it, causes debate, causes challenge, it causes criticism, all of the things that are critical to the development of a community and the development of ideas. So by placing the microscope on Islamic homophobia and then having people, either do-gooder white gay people or people of color gay people, saying, oh, no, you guys over here, you white people, you're privileged, yeah? That's you're just lucky that you've got this white privilege. Even though actually we know in the UK, it's not like gay rights was handed to gay people. There's a whole history of struggle. People like Peter Tatchell who've been campaigning most of their lives, putting their bodies on the line, getting beaten up. All of that work that it took to get to this point of gay acceptance. That's not the definition of privilege. Sweating, hard work, fighting, clawing for your human rights isn't privilege. That's actually something that is earned and something that is fought for tooth and nail. So dressing that up as privilege, what it does do, as well as mischaracterizing it, is it removes the scrutiny away from essentially Islamic deficiency. Yeah? So what you're doing is you're looking at these white people saying, you got it so easy, it doesn't matter. And you've removed the microscope or the magnifying glass from looking at the ideological causes and the deficits within our own community. And what that will do is carry our homophobia on for longer, because nobody is then looking at Islamic homophobia. What is the cause of this? How comes it manifests so much across the globe? How comes all of the countries that have a death penalty for homosexuality are countries that are Muslim? How come even countries that don't have the death penalty, that all of a sudden want to implement it, like Brunei, are always Muslim countries? Like, by saying actually no, it's just some Western privilege or some white privilege, you're really, really holding up our progress in our own communities, and you're just not being honest about the deficit in terms of our commitment to human rights for gay people.
I feel like there is an actual thing going on. I mean, this is what I very often feel like, and I think I see this in the West, in Western communities, in the Western average person who likes to say something about gay rights, about the LGBT community, for example, that many people are not really aware what is going on in the world. So even if they hear certain things about the world and they hear certain things about religious groups, the average person who stands up for gay rights in the West, for example, and who appears very fierce in that, here's the phrase that in over a dozen countries it is illegal to be homosexual, or you can be killed for being homosexual, but they never actually think about what religion those countries belong to, why this happens. So they only hear the facts, like this is happening in the world. That's why we must do something against homophobia, but they don't think further about what is actually responsible for this and why this is actually happening. It's so this whole blindness, this whole strange attitude on the left reminds me of Germany, for example. In Germany, we had this twist going on. Wait, people are saying my mic is. Can you hear me, people? Can you hear me, people? I don't know. I didn't change anything. It should be quite loud. I don't know.
Is my mic okay? Can you hear me, people?
I think you sound okay, but mine should be fine too. What? You can hear me all right, right?
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
I mute. I don't know. Can you hear me now? Everything okay? Everybody? Better. People say it's better. Okay. Well, I saw this twist happening in Germany, for example. In Germany, we had this thing. In Germany, this big twist happened with gay people and supporters of gay rights who previously used to very loudly speak up against anti-gay sentiments, and who would support the gay community, and who would applaud each other once someone says something about white people, or someone says something about Christians, someone says something about Western conservative attitudes, traditional sentiments. They would applaud each other. But once people started speaking out against Islamic sentiments that were an equivalent or even worse, that suddenly saw not only complete indifference by those loud people, but also reactions like, hey, that is Islamophobic, hey, that is hate, you don't understand what you're talking about, you need to step back and understand, you have to have some tolerance, people have different cultures and whatever. So there was this great opposition to people who previously fought together against homophobia in the West. And then this big switch happened, which is still happening, I guess, today, of people actually changing sides and switching to working together with the political right, because they see that the political right supports them in that matter, although they didn't support them in the other matter. And there is really this strange changes going on, and I feel like it really has to do with the fact that people don't understand how Muslims think. I mean, you previously talked about how Muslims are indoctrinated and they grow up thinking this way. They grow up thinking that they need to intimidate, that they need to do something about these sentiments of homosexuality. And what people need to think about is the average Muslim seriously thinks. I even see it here in the comment section, but you can see it out there in the street. You can see it in families. The average Muslim really thinks that when a gay person comes with a flag and supports a school that doesn't want to back down on teaching about tolerance, and because the gay person comes there and wants to defend people like them, like a gay person comes and wants to stand up for other gay people who he or she thinks are disadvantaged, are discriminated against. But the Muslim outside, who is indoctrinated by the idea that homosexuality is this great evil that needs to be punished, to them it looks like these gay people are not doing this out of empathy, not out of help, not out of freedom, out of equality, but they do this because they have an agenda against Islam. They do this because they want to corrupt us and our religion and our society. That they are part of a big agenda that is more than just this person who is out on the street and who is protesting, who is an activist. So Muslims really think that, and they think that because they are indoctrinated by their beliefs, like you and me, as said, learning from a very young age that homosexuality is evil and that it rightfully needs to be punished and all that. So there is really a huge miscommunication going on, and when activists in the West, who are normally staunch supporters of gay rights and human rights movements, are confronted with these sentiments that Muslims present, they are kind of shocked. They don't really understand what is going on. And they don't really know how to handle this. And the last thing they want to be is a bigot. The last thing they want to be is Islamophobic, hateful, racist. And it completely goes wrong.
Yeah, and I think it is. So when you mention that people don't think, there's over a dozen countries where it's legal to execute a gay person for being gay, that people don't think, well, what is the commonality? I think people probably do think now, hang on, they're Muslim countries, because I think that is so out in the rhetoric around challenging Islamic homophobia by many of us who are ex-Muslim, and actually those few white people who refuse to be silenced and are calling it out for what it is. So I think they do think, oh, hang on, Brunei, it's a Muslim country, it's not a surprise. But I think what you speak about the stigma to articulate that is what makes us think that they're not thinking it. So I think people internally realize, oh, look, here's another Muslim country that wants to join the Kill the Gay gang, and but I would never say that out loud, and I might even reprimand myself as a white person for thinking that, because whereas before we used to just be committed to human rights unilaterally, like this Charter of Human Rights that we have internationally would be our landing space and our place of governance around, are we doing the right thing? I think now, with the advent of and the rise of identity politics and intersectionality, it's just blown everyone's minds, because Muslim people can then say to white people, well, actually, you're being neo-colonialist. This is just an extension of your colonialist narrative, like when you took over India, and now you're trying to force your white perspective onto us brown people. You're calling our execution of gay people barbaric and backwards. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what you labeled us at when you came and colonized our countries. So there's the rhetoric of identity politics then gives this foot up to Islamic homophobia and stops white people from criticizing it, or wider society from criticizing it, because they don't want to be deemed as Islamophobic, but also they don't want to be deemed as racist. And then the whole moral relativism or cultural relativism sets in around, oh, you have to give these people time, every community works through this at their own pace, etc., etc. But that's just absolute nonsense, because what you're saying is brown people are just slower than white people. They can't figure this out at the same speed as us. And it's just that's actually complete racism, because you're not holding them to the same standard as you would with everybody else against the Human Rights Charter. And I think it's so important that that's what everybody needs to do. White, black, Asian, East Asian, whatever you are, is just come back to the Charter on Human Rights. If you're aligning with that, regardless of how difficult it is now, that people might call you an Islamophobe or people might call you a racist, if you are aligning with this internationally agreed Charter on Human Rights, in 20 years we're going to look back and everyone's going to be like, yeah, you were the right one. You weren't an Islamophobe, you weren't a racist. Yeah. What you were doing was championing human rights, and you were championing it consistently. You weren't saying some human rights for white people, some human rights for brown people, another lot of human rights for atheists, and some other lesser rights for people who are Muslim. And it's so important that we keep on espousing that as our baseline for where people should draw their governance from.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know, many people that I encounter on these issues are very much concerned about how they come off, how they appear, and the reaction that they will receive from the public if they say or do certain things, or if they don't say and do certain things. And people really just want to act accordingly. I mean, I really don't know how else to express this, but I often feel like out of experience, the same people who don't want to speak up against you know, oppressive, hostile Islamic sentiments because they don't want to single out Muslims and don't want to single out Islam, and they want to provide more visible tolerance, are also often people who don't really want to associate with Islam itself and with Islamic sentiments, people itself. So, you know, it feels like people are so much preoccupied with how they appear and with whether they are, with whether they are being politically correct and whether they are being, they're saying something acceptable or acceptable, that they are forgetting to actually do the right thing or to actually say the right thing. They are so much preoccupied with their appearance that they forget how to actually act in practice.
So I think there's some truth in this idea of people, if you say something supportive of Islam, you get your virtue signaling points, don't you? Yeah, like if you put on a hijab on World Hijab Day, like, yeah, you're so tolerant, you're so anti-racist, you're just amazing. It doesn't matter that, and it doesn't matter that women in Iran are fighting this, are being spat on by men, a morality piece because they're showing their hair. It doesn't matter that women in Saudi are dying to take off this garment, but you in your Western country get some morality points. But I think there's something that's quite national as well. So I think sometimes people are doing it on a national scale because they say Islamophobia in my country is a real thing, and actually I'm going to do a visible stance that will support this minority community. And there's something in that, Ridvan, which is quite noble. You know, I think there's something in that that's quite noble. So I'm always a bit more gentle with my criticism of those people. Like, they're trying to show support for what they think is a minority group. However, on the other side of that, in terms of people are concerned about how they appear, you know, the impact of appearing wrong has very real, visceral, day-to-day consequences. So when we look at people who lose their job because they have said something on Twitter or they've said something in a press release, and I think actually that plays a huge part, that sort of cancel culture aspect. And just to give you an example of when it happened to a celebrity, so there's a show that's really popular in the gay community called RuPaul's Drag Race. I don't know if a lot of straight people watch it. So Jeff Goldblum was on RuPaul's Drag Race.
I made a video on that show.
Perfect. So there was a drag queen who had, I think, Iranian heritage, but she was Canadian. She dressed up in a hijab, like Stars and Stripes hijab, because the theme of the costumes was Stars and Stripes. And as you know, she was saying, you know, it's I just wanted to represent Muslims here on the show. And show that, you know, you can be gay and you can be Muslim or of a Muslim heritage. And then Jeff Goldblum, and when you watch the clip, it's so sort of stream of consciousness. He's kind of saying what's coming into his head. It's not brilliantly well thought out. He's just kind of articulating it as it's coming to his mind. And he said, you know, I get what you're saying, but is there something in this religion that is inherently misogynistic and homophobic? The world went crazy. Like, the world went crazy that he actually asked that question was seen as Islamophobic in itself. And I think when you get your head around the absurdity of this, like the many absurdities. So RuPaul herself said, you know, drag has a history of shaking the tree, like as a metaphor of, like, you know, disturbing the status quo. That's what drag does. And all of the drag queens refer to themselves as drag artists, right? Because drag is in itself an art form from the gay community. So this idea that an artist presents her art, and then somebody stimulated via the presentation of the artist and their art, evokes a question. Because that's what art does, right? The purpose of art is to inspire, is to evoke questions, is to challenge, is to make you think. So when an artist does their art, the viewer of the art has a thought. Thought is a question. He articulates it, which is the whole purpose of art, is to make you think and ask questions. And the world goes nuts and labels him an Islamophobe. That's just mental. Like, an artist does art, the viewer of the art has a question, You don't like the question. So what now? It means that an artist can make art and dictate what questions people should ask as a response to their art. The artist will make art and tell you how to feel in accordance with their art. Like, this makes no logical sense whatsoever. And I had drag queens who are Facebook friends talking about how Islamophobic it was. And so, you know, I went into there and said, actually, but this is what art does. It raises questions. And actually, let's look at Islam and ask, is it inherently misogynistic and homophobic? Because I would argue that it was. Gave them some stats around the Muslim world, gave them some data on all of the countries with execution being Muslim countries. And what I hit back with was, yeah, but you're biased because you're an ex-Muslim. Yeah? As if the artist isn't biased, like her art isn't going to be biased. She's wearing a hijab, for God's sakes, and is from an Iranian origin. So her art isn't biased, but my facts that I'm giving you are somehow biased. And Jeff is somehow evil or bad because he asked a question about what you're portraying. Is it accurately portrayed, or does it have further nuances to it? And if someone like Jeff can get cancelled, well, Bob and Brian and Susan, who are just working down at the office, doing their 9 to 5, and they need their salary to pay their kids dinner and put food on the table and pay their rent or their mortgage, like that has a huge impact on people on social media thinking, wait, this dude responded to art and asked a question. I'm not allowed to say anything because it could cost me so dearly, and it could cost my family.
I found the words that were used in response to Jeff Goldblum's question very strange, or not strange, actually quite predictable, but very significant to talk about. When I saw the top responses, the top reactions on Twitter, one of the major reactions to Jeff Goldblum asking a very simple question. I mean, all he did was to observe a political message and make a comment on the political message, and the comment he made was just, I appreciate this, but is there something in that religion that is anti-woman and anti-gay? That's the only thing that he said, and he even added, maybe I'm being stupid, I don't know, but I'm just raising a point, and that's all he said. And one of the major responses to that on Twitter was that Jeff Goldblum is being dangerous, that what he's saying is dangerous, and that is a concern. That's a concern that people actually have. That just a simple question that you could ask about a religion, which happens to be the religion of a minority in the West, could be dangerous because it could lead people to have negative opinions on Islam, and then thereafter also on Muslims, which could lead other people to exert discrimination and violence against Muslims. It is such a mad slippery slope, and it is really something that people are concerned about. It's crazy.
So let me take that thread off you and loop it around a few other crazy things. Sometimes I just don't understand how I'm alive in this caricature of a world, right? So what you're saying is this idea of absolute fragility, that you can't even handle a question. So you have to know, there's a book out there called White Fragility, right? It is so trendy to work the words white fragility into a conversation. You will never hear anyone talk about Islamic fragility. Never. I don't even think the term exists.
That's a good idea, by the way. That should work.
But Islamic fragility is a very real thing, And so let's give you some examples. So the woman who wasn't even Muslim anyway, but is just of Muslim heritage, the drag queen who is just of Muslim heritage. So this idea that she couldn't even handle that question, she's going to fall to pieces because that question in itself is violence, And as a minority, she has to be protected from these violent questions that she's going to be asked, and it should never have been articulated in the first place. And her response to that question was, I might have my own misgivings with the religion. So what I want to know is if Jeff's question is violence, but the execution of gay people is only something to be giving you misgivings. Like, there is just a complete deficit of proportionality in that. It shouldn't be misgivings that gay people are executed. It shouldn't be misgivings that gay people are imprisoned. It shouldn't be misgivings that even in the West, a father tries to slit his son's throat in his sleep because he is gay, right? So we had one of those in the European countries, either Sweden or Switzerland. It was a gay boy was asleep. His family are from Muslim heritage. He wakes up, his dad standing above him, and says, "Are you gay? Are you gay?" And then proceeds to slit his son's throat. And fortunately, Ridwan, his son manages to clamber onto the balcony and be saved by the neighbors. And survives, but then comes forth and talks about it, because it's like, actually, this is not okay. To suggest that we should have misgivings about that type of actual violence, not a question, is just absolutely indicative of Islamic fragility. To take that thread of Islamic fragility further, when we were looking at these Birmingham protests, what the parents were saying was, my children can't handle this. They're coming home asking, can I be gay? What am I supposed to say as a parent when my kid asks me, can I be gay? You're confusing my kids. You're making these conversations happen in our house. Have a conversation with your child. Like, how difficult is it to say, listen, Bilal, actually, these people think it's okay to be gay in this country, but we're Muslim, and for us it's not okay to be
exactly
gay.
You can have that conversation.
Have that conversation. But this idea that we can't handle it because, oh my God, we're going to have to talk to our children, that's just absolutely ludicrous. And this idea that, you're confusing our children. The children, you think, are confused because they're being taught that Bob has two dads. But they're not confused about the idea of a man in a magical garden with his wife made from his rib, who eats an apple because a talking snake told her to, and then Sky Daddy kicks them out and we're all now living on Earth. One of those two is more confusing. It's certainly the Adam and Eve narrative. And I remember being a kid, so that's Adam and Eve. How did the rest of us get here? What happened? Adam and Eve have all of these babies. I was really confused actually by this narrative. And so what you do is you sit down with your child and you say, only God knows. You have whatever relevant conversation with them. But again, this Islamic fragility, we can't deal with conversations, we can't deal with questions. It's not okay to direct these questions and comments towards us. We're going to fall to pieces, and it's all racist. It's just an infantilizing of an entire community. That's what it is.
It is very. I often bring that back to how insecure Muslims are about their beliefs. I mean, we have all grown up with it, where Muslims see it everywhere in the world. You are from early childhood, as a child, you are being prepared, you're being armed to learn that you are not to trust the non-Muslims on what they have to say about belief, what they have to say about Islam and this and that. You are told not to question. You are told not to be preoccupied with this question and that question. I learned as a child that I'm not supposed to think too much, or we're not supposed to be preoccupied with certain thoughts. I mean, this is a very dominant narrative in Islam, that you learn to stay away from certain books, stay away from certain people, from certain opinions, from certain environments, because they could all harm your religious beliefs. And
so I wasn't insecure about my beliefs as a Muslim at all, actually. So I disagree with that. But I hear what you're saying, and I think maybe let me tie those 2 points together, because it's possible for them to coexist. No, I wasn't consciously. I was completely certain that my belief system was the one true system. Christians, poor things, they had the truth, then they fucked it up. And then Jews, they had the truth and they messed it up as well. My apologies. I promise not to swear. It just happened. So but I felt really bad for them, Ridwan. I felt like, oh, you poor things, like, you had the truth and you messed it up and now you're going to go to hell. Like, I really like you, next door neighbor. It's really sad that you're going to get tortured. You know, because also, I don't know about you, like, you're scared that the children are going to get confused about Bob having two dads, but you're so okay with teaching little Bilal that women are going to have iron hooks by their breasts, hanging over hellfire, burnt with their skin peeling off them and hot pus pouring all over them.
This is not an exaggeration, everybody, by the way. You really learn these graphic things about hell as a child.
If you read the Quran once and then you just forget about it, you'll be strapped down on a beach and a big monster will come with a huge rock and it will smash your head with such velocity that the rock will go flying away. Your head will split open, everything will pour out of it, and then the monster will start walking all the way to get the rock, and as the monster is returning with the rock, your head will begin to reform, and by the time he gets back to you, he will lift the rock and smash it again, and the same thing will repeat eternally. You know, like, Bilal ain't going to be confused about that, but he's sure as hell confused about Brian having two dads. And the other one, like, when you die and you go to the grave, if you're a bad person, the grave will constrict around you and one rib cage will fly into the other cage and you will sit there experiencing this pain for all eternity until the day of judgment. You know, like, Brian's two dads are the least of Bilal's issues.
I mean, really, I learned as a child. I mean, as I was growing up with Christians everywhere around me, because I was growing up in Germany, I was simultaneously learning that after the day of judgment, even if we have committed many sins, Allah will forgive those Muslims who have faith in their heart, and He will exchange Jews and Christians. He will take a Jew and Christian in our place and throw them into burning hellfire with listening to their screams and put us into heaven. And that was okay to learn. That was okay.
I didn't learn that.
That's a hadith.
But I did learn that when you go to heaven, like, when you have, if you're a Muslim who went to hell, who then went to heaven, you'd be branded, like some kind of sign on your forehead that you were a former hell incumbent, but now you're in heaven, so you weren't as pious as the other Muslims who made it there, because it's all a competition. But what was my point? What were you talking about? Yeah, so I was saying that, like, I didn't have that fragility around my religion, actually. I was so convinced that Christians got it wrong, poor things. Jews got it wrong, poor things. At least they were people of the book. My Hindu friends, with their many-handed God, you know, we used to ridicule it. Oh, look at their God, it's got lots of hands. Oh, they're worshipping idols. Meanwhile, we're walking around a Kaaba, kissing a big stone, which is magically going to cleanse all of our sins. But that wasn't paganism, right? You know, and I didn't have the critical faculties to determine the inherent hypocrisy within those two analogies. And then Buddhism. Like, what the hell were you doing as a Buddhist? No one had any idea, right? So I wasn't insecure in my faith. I was really secure in it. But you're right. When I would ask certain questions, who made God, right? Classic one. Who made God? That was when your thoughts were told, don't think about this too much. Yeah? And it was okay to think a lot, so long as you were thinking about the right stuff. So if you're thinking about how benevolent God is, which was never actually articulated, but how merciful He was, or how He created everything, how insignificant you were compared to Him, how much He should be worshipped. If you were thinking the right things, that was completely encouraged. Sometimes monetarily, you know, like, so if I finished a Sapada, like if I finished one of the 30 books, I might get £1 off my dad as a reward, like well done, you've been studying your Quran. Pretty soon figured out, you know, there's 30 of these. If I lie and say I've finished one, I get some more money. It's quite a cool way of getting some income. So there were definitely ways to keep me thinking about Islam in a positive. But you're right. As soon as it came to something that engaged the critical faculty, it was like, don't think about this. Don't think about this. Don't, or you're too young to understand. Or as you got older, only God knows, right? Only because we're so insignificant in humans that our ability to comprehend the logic and rationality behind His edicts and His choices, like being able to hit your wife, is just limited. Our understanding is limited. Yeah,
I have to say you had a very soft upbringing compared
I
compared to
did.
mine.
Yeah, so I think Rizwan, I've been on a lot of people's podcasts, right, and had a lot of conversations with so many different ex-Muslims. So my sisters didn't wear hijab, for example, and I think that's a good example of or a good indicator of your level of conservatism in the family. Yeah, so we're kind of Pashtun, northern Pakistanis. So there was certainly a lot of religious conservatism there. My sisters' bodies were certainly policed in terms of their attire, but they weren't forced to wear hijab. And yeah, I guess when I hear some of you guys' stories, I'm like, wow, you had it bad. And then I'm like, wow, imagine being gay in their house. Like, it was bad enough being gay in my house, right? Mm-hmm. But imagine being gay in your house. Would you have survived? Like, would you have killed yourself?
I did think about that sometime. I thought about that a while ago. I don't know. It's something that I've thought about several times. Like, I guess, like the family that I grew up in, or my some relatives of mine had an even more religious family. It was a very strict family where you are always at every prayer time, 5 times a day. You have to be there in the prayer room on time. Otherwise, you're in trouble, and it's like everything is policed so brutally. And I was wondering, like, if I was gay in the family that I grew up in, or with that family, how would things have turned out? It really makes me think. It's strange. I don't know.
I think a lot of gay people contemplate suicide anyway, even if you're not Muslim. Yeah. So certainly in my generation, because 20 years ago. More than 20 years ago, society generally was quite homophobic in the West anyway. So, everyone was called disparaging gay words. I was going to say one there, but I didn't know if I was swearing or not. So, you'd be using that FAG for everybody, or just calling them gay or whatever, and that would be enough to, make you contemplate suicide. But I think lumping Islam on that, a number of my gay Muslim and gay ex-Muslim friends, talk about wanting to commit suicide. And then also a few of us were talking about jihad as saving us. Because, like, your sin, being gay isn't, it's not like stealing or swearing or breaking your fast. It's not like those kind of sins, right? So being gay is like top level.
Yeah.
You're a creature, you're not even human, you're subhuman, you're less than animals, people used to say. Even because people used to say, even animals don't do this, and these gays are doing this. And so thinking that you didn't deserve to live was a big thing. And then, if you do commit sins, dying in jihad means you go to heaven no matter what, right? So never really thought about committing any sort of attack or anything like that, but just think, look, there is a window, because you're thinking, like, how can I get to heaven? Like, I'm gay, how can I get to heaven? And then jihad is this wipe the slate clean and then go to the top level of heaven with your 72 virgins. And I was like, we'll just do our nails together, we'll wear face masks, it'll be like a slumber party, because no one's going to be having sex, right? So like, it was just like, how do we get to heaven? And then, another one of my friends who's a gay ex-Muslim was actually thinking about, he was looking at locations where he could do an attack, because he was proper Salafi, when he was Muslim. And that whole conflict between being the physical manifestation of evil, like what our religion is like. This is the most perverse, sickest thing you can ever be. That, trying to come to terms with that, and how you could make it work within this ideological framework, only left you a couple of options, which was like celibacy, die a martyr, and then I guess what happens is leave. Yeah, but that's outside of the framework.
I guess, I mean, there was a there was this talk on around the terrorist attack that happened in Orlando, on the club. There was a gay club, right? And the guy was thought to be gay himself, and
He wasn't in the end.
he
Yeah.
wasn't.
No. The last report that came out, that was all just fabrications. It wasn't true. It's just, if you're gonna shoot up some people and kill them, and you score brownie points with gods, kill the gays, right? Because those are the best.
I mean,
people to
you
kill.
see that that you commit certain sins as you grow up a Muslim, and you really have this sentiment. I mean, I was there. I was there when I was religious. I started, certain things started coming back from my previous free life, and even very, very minor things about sexuality, about sex, about sexual desires. And when they came back, and I was at the peak of my religiosity, I was like, I didn't know what to feel, But what I felt was that, why is this happening? Is it you start blaming the outside, you start blaming those sources in this corrupt world, and you start blaming the world, you start blaming these things for corrupting you, for possibly drawing you into sin. And you may think, why do these sources exist? I mean, you think about fashion, about music, about contemporary pop music, about clubs and all that kinds of stuff, and you imagine a world where you don't want such things to exist, because you think those things distract you from what you are supposed to do in this world and what you are supposed to be in this world. So you wish that those things went away. And if it gets to such a level that it becomes uncontrollable and you start hating those sources and hating those things, it's not unthinkable that you get back to having extremely hateful and violent sentiments about those things, especially if you grew up with Islam from very early childhood. I mean, I had books at the next to my bed which taught me about the history of Muhammad, the beloved prophet, and about how the brave Muslims fought in the way of Allah. And you learn how that is the most heroic thing to do. And what does that give you? What can it imply? It can imply that fighting for Allah is a way to earning the
brownie points.
The satisfaction, of pleasing Allah, pleasing God, and you can see that as a way of making things right, and I wouldn't say it is necessarily what the ideal mainstream Muslim would do. Absolutely not. But it is there.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I think absolutely not. It's not what the ideal mainstream Muslim would do. I think, but when the thing about sexuality is when I didn't hate the world is sexuality. You get the sense that it's coming from within, right? It's so kind of intrinsic to you that I never really felt it was outside influence at all. And often people, when I was going and asking the mosque man, I've got a friend who's gay, and blah blah blah. What does Islam say about this? And they're like, oh, it's corruption, la la la. And then they start talking about influences and all of that stuff, and you're just listening to them as a gay person, thinking, mate, you haven't got a clue. This is not like outside influences like that. I was straight and then somehow I became gay because of influences, which is the level of sophistication those arguments had back at that time. And
I want to make a small correction there. What I meant was not that that comes from outside, not that sexuality and sexual desire comes from outside, but that sexual desire comes from inside. That's what I thought too. But that there are these possibilities and all these things outside that that want you to act out your desires, and that you develop a certain hate toward that. At least that was the case with me. Maybe I was very much repressed. I don't know.
Maybe, and I think because where I was going to kind of take it is this repression, isn't it? Like how that repression, and as I say that to you, is that it's not true that I didn't feel like it was the outside influences. I'm really cognizant of the ability of our mind to hold more than one conflicting thing, in it at the same time. So I was never like, I never felt like these outside influences were influencing me to be gay. And when the imam was saying that, or family members would say that about gay people, I just thought, you're such idiots, you haven't got a clue what this is really about. But the answer was certainly to dive more into Islam to find out, or to pray more, because then God will cure me of this disgusting malady, So it was that kind of thing. But I think I think Islam can really pervert sexuality if you're not careful. And so I think when we look across the Muslim world, we have a lot of situational homosexuality. That men are horny, they need to like express that sexuality, and then they end up having sex with other men when they're not really gay. They're not gay at all, but actually it's the absence of women, in the same way that if men are in prison, the absence of women leads to situational homosexuality. But the irony is that these men are not in prison, they're out in society, they just don't have access to women. So I think Islam can really do weird things with sexuality. It can make homosexuality occur and develop for people who aren't even gay. And then maybe that warps your ability to understand homosexuality, because you think, well, when I was 15, I was having sex with the other boy at school, but I was never gay. I was just doing that, whatever. And now this other person says to you, look, I'm gay, I'm only attracted towards men. Well, you don't believe that's true because you remember having sex with the other guy at school, but you were only doing it because you couldn't get a woman yourself, right? So maybe it limits the ability to understand homosexuality. And I have a friend from Pakistan who has the best story. He was like, Jimmy, in our school we had a bench and all of the boys used to go there and wank together, and they'd go and wank in pairs. And if somebody went with your wank bench partner, you'd get jealous. Like, but nobody was gay. Nobody was gay. It's just like you had no sexual outlet.
Really?
So it can do some really perverse things to people's sexuality because of its rigidity and its inflexibility and its absolute condemnation around conversation around it. So we know that in Pakistan, there's textbooks of Pakistan where the reproductive system section is taken out of biology books, so that people aren't learning about reproduction, because well, what will happen if they learn about reproduction? It's absolutely crazy. And then I think what that also does is, not giving kids a basic understanding about reproduction and reproductive rights actually enables child sexual abusers. Because in that conversation, when you're saying, listen, this is your penis, this is your vagina, this is how babies are made, it's not appropriate for somebody to be touching you like this, you should tell your parents if an adult is doing, all of that is contained in this conversation. And one of the pushes for reproductive rights conversations in the West was definitely about securing and safeguarding young girls from predators. But in Muslim countries where you're not doing that, well, then you're not safeguarding girls and boys from adults who seek to be predatory on them. And if you're generating a whole bunch of people who have no sexual outlets, I mean, I'm not going to add those things up for you, but I suggest that there's some correlation.
I have to add something to that, which I actually brought up recently in a conversation that I had with this Muslim apologist, Daniel Hakikicu.
I watched it. How comes every time somebody wants to have a scholastic debate, killing gays has to come up? It's always part of the conversation. Whenever Muslims want to talk about philosophy, okay, but killing gays, la 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 la. I'm just like, God,
that was the main thing he wanted to. He came to prove to me why killing gays is good. So
I couldn't go through all 4 hours. There's only so much killing gays Muslim talk I can listen to. So I got to 2 hours and I was like, can I handle any more of this? I think I just need to stop, come back to it another time.
I mean, I was sitting there and I asked him, what should happen to me as an apostate? He was like, death. I was like, okay, let's move on. And they think it's strange that I got mad. But anyway, in that conversation, I mentioned something because he was mentioning how sexual perversion in liberalism and in Western culture leads to boys of single mothers being depressed and stuff like that. And I was like, what are you going at? You're giving very extreme examples. I went to Turkey, which is a very moderate Muslim country. And I switched to my high school times. I was in high school when we moved to Turkey, and I started going to high school in Turkey. And I really don't want to say this to demonize people or to make people look strange and weird and disgusting, but I just have to state some facts and some experiences from my past. When I went there, I was shocked. In Germany, it was a normal Western culture. You're all fine, you're all equal, girls, boys hanging out together. In fact, Germany was probably one of the most equal culture that I was in, and boys are just friends, hang out together and stuff like that. When I went to Turkey, I was shocked. Like, I'm in high school, and what happens is that boys know nothing about sexuality at all, know
Yeah.
nothing about sex, know nothing about women. All their ideas are complete fantasies. They freak out when they see a boy and a girl kiss, and they used to do this thing at school, like where they joke and make pranks where they touch each other's butts, like the boys, and where they talk about having sex with each other and anal sex for jokes, for comedy purposes, while also completely hating homosexuals and homosexuality. And I was like, what the hell is happening here?
Yeah.
And there were also random talks about, for example, I have to say this, I'm sorry, there were frequent talks, especially in more rural places or in, less advanced, less developed, less elite, less Western places, where people randomly or casually talk about going to the village or going to a town and having sex with a donkey, for example, or having penetrating certain types of animals, for example. And I heard that stuff, and coming from Germany into that culture, I thought, what the hell is wrong with you people? What is going on here? I only later realized why that is. It is because people don't learn about sex. They don't learn about sexuality. They don't these feelings. This knowledge is completely repressed. They are shamed. They have no idea how to let these things out, how to handle them, and as a result, they resort to things like touching each other's butts while hating homosexuality and thinking about penetrating donkeys in their town. So it's really twisted what happens in these.
Completely, and I think to bring this all back to the craziness of killing gays. Like, I just want to say something else that actually in Western communities, this kind of ties into that, abandonment of the West. Not that I'm saying we should do this, but you can walk into a room full of Muslim people and you can say, guys, should gay people be executed for being gay? Guys and girls, do you think gay people should be executed for being gay? And like a 1 hour conversation can take place around that. Yeah. Like, some people will be like, yeah, we should kill the gays. Other people will be like, no, we shouldn't kill the gays. Then the people who said, yeah, will be like, you're not a real Muslim because Hadith says we should kill the gays. And these people will be like, no, but those Hadith are weak. And then somebody will call this person a kuffar. And it will just go on and on and on and on. Conversely, Ridwan, if you walked into a room full of gay people and you said, should we kill Muslim people for being Muslim? You wouldn't even get to finish the question.
Of course.
You really wouldn't. And for me, I'm just like, who's got the better morality here? Like, who's really committed to human rights, to civil liberties, to people's existence and development? Because if you asked that question in a room full of gay people, like, somebody would cancel culture your ass, right? They'd record you asking that question. They'd blast it all over the internet, or you'd get told to leave the room. The people in the room would probably never speak to you again. It would be such a hideous question to ask. Like, people just couldn't even imagine that somebody would ask that question. Meanwhile, that's, as we've seen in your debate, that's like you can get a good 2 hours out of a Muslim around should we kill a gay, should we not kill a gay, etc., with no sense of animus around that conversation at all.
Yeah. Rationalizing how to do it, why it is good for society, why even if you're not a Muslim it's good for society, and so on. It doesn't even end there. It goes on with apostates, women, slaves, everything. And I bring this up often as a comparison for people to understand the issue with apostasy. When people don't, this is one of the issues where people still don't realize that there are tons of countries where you can either legally or socially not be gay and not be an apostate from Islam. And no one is doing anything about it. And I'm always posing the example just to give people something, especially to give Muslims something to maybe understand where we are coming from or what it actually looks like. To just say, imagine the Western nations made it illegal to convert to Islam, and punished the conversion to Islam with death, and called all those who convert to Islam deviants. And the word deviant carries the connotation that you deserve to die for converting to Islam. How would the world react to this? Muslims would be going crazy. The world would be in chaos. Everywhere there would be protests. Everything. This couldn't even happen. It would be impossible to make. And it would be cruel. It wouldn't happen either, and we wouldn't support it at all. But it is considered
and
completely
ex-Muslims
normal.
would be the first people marching against it as well.
Yes, I would be completely
because
against this.
we're so committed to human rights. I think also there's something in what you're talking about, which is like, there's something quite violent in Islam, right? Like there's a lot about it that's quite violent, and I've been reflecting on that quite a bit the past few months. Like, how comes is it we're so keen on this killing? How comes is it we're so justifying of this wife-beating verse? Like, what is it? And I think it's got something to do with this concept of hell. Yeah. So this idea that we've got hell, so like in the UK, if you commit a crime, you go to jail for a proportional amount of time to the severity of the crime that you commit. Yeah. And then when you're in jail, our hopes are that you'll engage in some courses, you'll get rehabilitated, you come out as a functioning member of society. If not, and you commit a crime again, you might go back to jail because you can't be trusted in society if you're constantly showing that. But this whole concept of hell is like, you get 100 years on earth, let's say, and you mess up. Let's say you're an ex-Muslim and you're like, screw this Islam nonsense, it doesn't make sense. And so you really, you had the luxury of being born into Islam, and you really turn your back on God, and you're gay as well. So like, double whammy, right? So you're going to go to hell then, not for like 800 years or 1600 years or 100,000 years. You're going to go to hell for eternity.
Yeah.
And the purpose of hell is void of any rehabilitative practice. Yeah, like there's nothing in hell. We're not going to put you on some courses around Islam. We're not going to put you on some courses on how to worship God better. We're not going to put you on some courses that teach you the error of your ways. And actually, when your family in heaven say, I wonder what happened to Jimmy, the window's going to open up for them where they can look down at you. I'm not making this up, guys. I promise I'm not making this up. This is actually what they teach us. So a window's going to open up, and your family will be there, and they'll be looking down at you, like at the movies, being like, oh, look, there's Jimmy in hell having his head bashed by a demon. And then the same teaching says, I'll look up and say, oh, please save me, save me, save me. And then what those people will say is like, no, you had your chance, mate. You're going to have to suffer for eternity now, right? So this concept of hell is full of torture, like violent, visceral descriptions, evocative descriptions of physical violence enacted on human beings, right? And is devoid of any sense of rehabilitation. The purpose of that torture isn't to make you a better person. The purpose of that torture is to punish you, is to make you suffer and make you experience pain.
Mm-hmm.
And the instrument that has designed this torture is perfect.
Yeah.
So this perfect being has decided that the way to just deal with people who err and stray is non-stop enactment of pain. So there's just a violent action.
So what could they be better than?
The most just and intelligent creature that designed this world thinks that the appropriate thing to do to people is be violent towards them, to make sure that they experience pain on a level that they have never even contemplated whilst they were on earth, because the fires of hell are 8 million times hotter than the sun. The boiling waters of hell are 16 bazillion times more hotter than the boiling waters on earth, right?
And you're just following his example. Yeah.
Vehement torture is what he's advocating for us. And then we see in this community violence, fear, intimidation as go-to positions to get people to coerce. Like when we think about honor culture, like when you think about honor culture, I think a lot of Westerners think about honor culture like that boy I talked about who had his throat slit, or you think about families throwing acid on their daughter, or you think about families killing their daughter. Like that's where honor culture has failed, right? There's so many mechanisms of honor culture that are beneath the tip of the iceberg, underneath the water level. Things like intimidation, things like policing, coercive actions like shunning and disowning, all of these actions, and then other actions like controlling, like literally, where are you going? What time will you be home? Who are you going with? Making sure that, people, and this is for like your 26-year-old daughter. I'm not talking about like your 14-year-old kid, right?
You're never an adult.
Exactly. This level of control is like the other levels of honor culture that we don't really hear about in the press. We only hear when all of those levels have failed, well, then he killed his daughter. When all of those levels have failed, then he slit his son's throat. So there's all these levels of coercion, which actually are quite synergistic with the idea of hell.
I remember environments, I remember moments as images on my mind very clearly, where we would be sitting around with our religious family, relatives and friends, the youth and the adults, and everyone has their heads down, quite serious and emotional, talking about the descriptions of hell, on how in hell, if when we go to hell, we will be you will be burned and your skin will melt and your skin will be peeled off and put on again, and you will you will be given water to feel better, to feel cool and fresh, but the water will be hot instead and boil your insides. You will have,
and your bottom lip will
poked into
swell
your,
up.
yeah, you will be hung upside down. It will be crazy. Your eyes will be plucked out and burned, and the entire time you think.
But don't teach your kids that Bob has two dads, because that will confuse him. Like,
and the entire
teach
time,
him all of this stuff.
you wonder, well, how much pain. I mean, after a while, you start tolerating pain, right? But no. You don't.
But then they say that you'll forget it. They'll forget it, and
you forget it.
God will intentionally make you forget that pain.
You die, and then you are brought back to life.
Exactly like the first time you ever experienced it. Yeah. And then when you're like, hang on, who's doing this all to me? Is it Shaitan? Is it the devil who's decided that he's going to torture me and kill me? No, it's God who's decided to do that to you.
Don't remember. Allah is the most forgiving, the most merciful, the most kind.
So let's stay with that, because it's a beautiful point, right? So, how to term this, like we've invented this we've got some new phrases here today, right? Like, so Islamic deficiency, when we think about the homophobia in Islamic communities, Islamic fragility, when we're like, oh my God, you can't talk about my religion, like I just can't handle it or question it. There has to be a word for this warping and redefining of words, yeah? That mercy equals torture. That forgiveness equals torture with no end or proportionality in sight. Like, there has to be a word for that. It's this contortion of language, because somehow I was left believing that despite all of that torture, and it never having an end date, it never being proportional, it being extremely sinister, that was taught to me as mercy and forgiveness.
I remember sitting in my bed, on my bed, whatever you say, at night when I was very religious, and I had tears, I was crying, and I was praying to Allah, not to forgive me, but to forgive all those sinful people that I see. I was praying to Allah to not put them in hell, to torture them and burn them forever, as I was also believing that He's so beautiful, so wonderful, so loving.
And then being told that it's bad to pray for those people.
Yeah.
Like, so I had the same thing.
I was praying for Muslims.
I used to pray for non-Muslims or anybody who was in hell, or pray for the people who are currently in their grave having their rib cages smashed together, and be like, please God, like, just chill with them, man. Like, don't hurt them too much. Like, it's, it must be really painful for them. And then I do remember, like, in Islamic, in the mosque, them talking about, you have to hate what God hates as well. You can't love what God hates, because
hate and love for Allah.
just crazy, yeah.
Good
crazy
stuff.
Ideology.
Very good stuff.
Warping your mind.
You gave me the idea to make a video about Islamic fragility. Maybe I will work
on
it. I'll see what I can do. That'll be a nice twist.
There are numerous examples of Islamic fragility out there. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Jimmy. It was I think we are kind of slowly at an end. I thought we would talk like an hour or so, but then the conversation was really nice. I really loved talking, so I just wanted to keep going with you.
Did we look at the comments? Did anybody say anything?
Yeah, no, I will come to that.
Anything interesting?
I will I have been kind of taking some comments and trying to include them into our conversation in a way, but I will definitely read out and respond to the super chats that are here.
Okay. Before you do that, can I take a quick comfort break? I'll be back in 2 minutes. Yeah. Cool.
Sure. Do that. Okay. So he's gone. I'm here. Fantastic. I will start looking at the super chats. Everybody, thanks so much for joining. By the way, thanks for your comments and thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Joseph Duff Kulisek made a super chat and said, "Have you ever watched any of the sighting cartoons on YouTube? Cartoons like the Quran Gangbang series. I think that you'd really get a laugh. They are great parodies of Naik and other YouTubers. I've watched some of those videos before." I think especially his whole parodies of, the scientific accuracy of the Quran and featuring Muslim apologists and stuff like that was really hilarious. I really wish he would make more videos. That would be amazing. I had contact with him sometime. I wanted to organize and make videos in a specific direction, parodies of Muhammad's life itself directly, but I don't know. I think he's kind of become inactive. He's busy with other stuff, so whatever. But appreciate what's there. Saitan has amazing content on YouTube. It's very funny. Thanks for the super chat, Joseph. Hindu Historian made a super chat and said, "Hard to hear these stories without feeling infuriated." Exactly. I mean, sometimes it really makes you wonder how people really live with these sentiments and live on with these sentiments for decades, for an entire lifetime, and don't even have a problem with that, and actually come out here and rationalize that for 4 hours. It's crazy. Thanks, Hindu Historian. Thank you for the super chat. Subhadeep Rai made a super chat and left a comment in what I believe is Hindi. I have no idea what it says. But thank you, I appreciate it. Slarty Bart first, always here. Thank you so much. Made a super chat and said, "Knowing Birmingham very well, Jimmy is totally correct. Birmingham Muslims often refer to visits to Pakistan as going home, and they aren't being nasty. It's just that's how they view the UK." Exactly. I mean, I grew up in Germany too, and many of us people who live in Europe, who experience Muslim culture in Europe, know that for a fact that to most or many Muslim people, immigrants and descendants of immigrants, their place here in Europe is the place where they live, whereas the place in the country that they came from or that their parents came from is home. So that is home. This is just where they are, where they live, but that is home. And if you think that way, it just completely disturbs the way you think about society. You don't think that you are part of the society that you live in. And it makes you, it teaches you a certain way of discrimination, of not belonging to this group, of preserving your identity and being a foreigner in this land, which has bad consequences. Welcome back, Jimmy, by the way.
Thank you. I'm just scrolling the comments.
Yeah, I'm reading the super chats right now. Slutty Bar first made another super chat and said, "Birmingham Muslims can also be in denial. An example, a number of my Muslim friends believe there are no gay people in Pakistan because Pakistan is a Muslim country." It's reverse logic.
Chechnya said the same thing. No, Chechnya didn't say the same thing. Chechnya started rounding up gay people into concentration camps.
No, Chechnya the guy said there are no gay people here in Chechnya. That's what he said.
But that can't make sense, right? Because he was rounding gay people up. It was Iran who said there are no gay people.
The thing is, I think
Chechnya said, "We'll have no gay people by Ramadan."
No, he said he actually did say that. There were accusations about them rounding up gay people, and there was also proof. And he went out denying that and saying it's a lie. There are no gay people here. That's what he said. So he actually did make such a declaration.
Okay, cool.
I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, so I think the point is that's not uncommon that people will make that claim because and it is actually gay is seen as a very white Western thing in communities. So in the Birmingham protests, there's a speech. One of the women is saying, "It's okay for their kids, but it's not okay for our kids."
Yeah.
And then this idea that it's okay for white people to be gay, but it's not okay for our Pakistani children, it's not okay for our Muslim children to be gay. Somebody sent me a tweet, and I haven't managed to check its authenticity, and she was saying, in Pakistan, I think 3 teenagers were caught raping a cat. And she was saying, listen, this is a more need for, here we are saying that there shouldn't be sex and reproductive education. Meanwhile, our teenagers are raping a cat. And I think, when we're talking about this bestiality stuff, guys, don't assume all Muslims are doing this or whatever percentage. I'm just saying that actually, when you repress sexuality in this unheard of way, like when you repress sexuality in this ardent, stringent, inhuman way, things manifest in really bizarre, it creeps out in really bizarre and unnatural ways. Yeah.
There is this thing. When I recently had this chat with the Muslim apologist, for example, and he was accusing Western culture of being so sexually corrupt that that the children become depressed and become maniacal. I then responded by saying that Islam represses sexuality and sex overall in such a way that it makes people uncontrollable with their sexual desires, which is why Muslims are so overly represented as with sexual assault in Europe, for example, or with bestiality. He then turned it around on me.
Of the Muslim rapist thing. Yeah. I watched the first 2 hours, right? So I'm really
he turned it around and said, and said, "How dare you call Muslims rapists?" I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Yeah, you see what's happening there, right?
Well, just try and be a single woman walking. Just try and be a single, as in not single as in marital status, single as in alone, walking down the street in some Muslim countries, and compare that to walking down the street in America or in the UK, right? And you know what the difference is. I remember my friends were in Morocco, 2 of my gay friends went on holiday to Morocco, and some blonde-haired white woman, Lord knows what got into her, she thought it was okay to walk around Morocco by herself. And so then the rings of men started forming around her. My 2 gay mates went bullet line for her. They were like white gay guys. And they grabbed her and they held her hand, pretended they were all friends. They're like, "Oh my God, so good to see you, where are you going?" And then they were talking to her like, "What the hell are you doing?" She was like, "I didn't know that was going to happen." They're like, "You can't just walk around the streets by yourself as a woman. That's not safe for you to do." And then I don't know if you had this with one, but like I speak to some Pakistani and Afghan women who talk about when they used to go to the market. Like maybe they're more likely to share this with gay guys than they are with straight guys, but like in the markets in Pakistan, like men will go and just start groping women, because the women go to the market, right, to buy whatever they're going to buy. Men will pinch their butts, and there's a book called the Kabul Beauty School, which is about a woman, a Western woman who's white from America, goes to Kabul, helps to set up a beauty school during the war, and is training these women there to become hairdressers. And she talks about her first time when she went to a bazaar, and men started groping her ass. And she's from the West, right? So she grabs this guy's hands and starts screaming. And the other Muslim women from Afghanistan are like, "Shit, leave his hand alone. Like, just move away from him. You don't out somebody who's molesting you. Like, you don't talk about this. It doesn't happen. Like, you can't do that." And she wouldn't let go. She took the man to the policeman who was at the bazaar, and he just kind of let him go. So there's all of these facets where repression creeps out. And it's not as simple or grotesque as saying Muslim rapist, but it is nuanced in saying repressed sexuality has to come out in some ways, and it comes out in really bizarre ways, like groping women at the mall as a standard practice, so that women are not even talking about it. It's just, I remember talking to a member of my family. She was like, "Oh my God, like, the stories we could tell you about at the bazaar getting groped by men, like, you just have to keep on moving." Like that. So is the reality of the issue. The
message here, the sentiment here is not that Muslims are evil or Muslims are perverse or whatever it is. The message here is that Islam is extremely unhealthy. That Islam is bad, and Islam gives people these problems, these sentiments that make ordinary people, that make ordinary people very, you know what I mean. I can find the word for that.
I work as a therapist, and if you're repressing yourself in something to that extent, it's going to manifest.
It's basic psychology. That is what you learn.
It's just going to manifest. And when I say I like is ironically the way he linked then sexuality to porn addiction. Like as if these two things were inherently connected in the West. Like actually, in the Western society, in your conversation with that gentleman, he was saying actually in the West everyone's addicted to porn, blah 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 blah. Therefore, this is what happens when people are allowed to express their sexuality. They become addicted to porn. Like, that's such a dumb leap, isn't it? Like, it's such a ridiculous leap, as if that those are your options, are actually repress everyone to such a level that they're not allowed to express sexuality, or everyone becomes a porn addict. Like, these are the binary good, evil, heaven, hell type conditioning that Islam gives to you.
Yeah, it's insane. It's crazy. I'll move on. Super chats. Study Bart first, made another super chat and said, I remember the gate episode. There is no sense of irony that these people have. They always display the most thuggish behavior, yet claim to be victims, and any counter protest is Islamophobic. Yeah, we talked about that quite a while ago. Thank you so much, Study Bart first. Sojkovic made a super chat. I'm sorry, I didn't read the super chats in time. I kind of wanted to leave them to the end. But Sojkovic made a super chat and said, hello there, children. Thank you so much, Sojkovic. I appreciate it. Slotty Barfars made another super chat and said, hit the nail on the head. AP, please do a video on Islamic fragility. It's a perfect summation of every conversation. I'm really thinking of doing that. I will credit Jimmy for that, for giving me the idea. It's a perfect twist on that. I'm really thinking of making...
Please spread this idea, normalize that term. Normalize it. Yeah. And we need to be able to say, listen, the way you're shouting at me now, that's just Islamic fragility. Just take a moment, yeah? Or the way that you won't let me talk about actually Islamic homophobia and you're accusing me of racism, that's just Islamic fragility manifesting.
Check your Islamic fragility.
Check your Islamic fragility. You'd make such a good social justice warrior. I was like a full-time social justice warrior, though, so I think maybe that's why I'm a bit more adept at these linguistic terms. Yeah.
And another super chat by Fakhruddin Razikov. Thank you so much, Fakhruddin. Said, AP, please make a video on how many times Quran uses the word kill. That would be a nice fact to know. You're doing a great job. Keep on doing that. That's actually a very great idea, to be very honest here for a second. It's actually, it will be funny to put out such data in context, like what it stands for in which places and how often it mentions it in this way and in that way. It would be actually nice.
Rohit Banjari said Islam means peace.
It certainly does.
That's the best joke ever.
It certainly does. It means peace under all their circumstances, under all the conditions that Islam provides.
And I think homosexuality is okay in heaven. Like, I think you're allowed to do whatever you want in heaven, because you're gonna have like these young boys serving you stuff. Like,
well, yeah. The thing there is, the actual Islamic idea is that everything will be allowed in heaven, but there won't be sinful actions in heaven. So you will be, for example, drinking a lot of wine, but the wine will not be alcoholic wine that makes you drunk and sick and whatever it is. Or you will not be able to go out and I don't want to say the word, sexually assault people or whatever, rape people, because you will have your own sex slaves. So it is a very wicked thing.
And like your erection will be like lasting for hundreds of days.
I think that's based on a less authentic narration, but it does exist in Islam. So.
Okay. It's always less authentic when it's inconvenient, like always.
Yeah. But you will definitely have at least 2 women that were specially made for you by Allah that you can have sex with, and they
can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be amazing.
The awful thing, the misogynistic thing here is also, I mean, I have always thought about the women in society. You know, you are a woman and you learn that the men will, when they go to heaven, get these 2 beautiful houris, these wives, and on top of that, they are also more beautiful than anything you have ever seen, than any woman you have ever seen. As a woman, what do you think? You think, oh, so these men will get women up there that are much more beautiful than any of us can ever be. So, you know.
But I think in Islam, if women are thinking, that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
You know, like really, they shouldn't be thinking. They should just be.
Yeah.
Shut up, wash the dishes, cook some food, and make some baby. It's like, I think, you know, is that level of misogyny. Someone in the comment section said, wow, Christian hell seems like nothing compared to Islamic hell. And I think it's true. Like, the description, when I talk to Christian people about their concept of, well, I mean, they've kind of moved past hell now, haven't they? They've moved on to, there's some Christian people who are like, oh, hell is an old concept, it doesn't count anymore. Now it's all about God is love, and you'll have the absence of his love when you die if you're not devout or surrendering yourself to Jesus. But when I used to talk to my Christian friends at school, they didn't have this fire and brimstone fear that we had, and it may be that it once was with a part of their religion, but and emphasized in the same way, but certainly when I was growing up, it wasn't their thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, they weren't scared of having their rib cages crushed in the grave.
Well, the thing is, with Christianity, hell is not a fundamental, essential part of belief. So you are not, people. It doesn't focus on hell. Hell is mentioned only several times in the Christian Bible, and it is never explicitly described, which is why there are many interpretations to it, that it is just a place of separation or suffering in terms of being apart from God. Or some people even believe in annihilation and are still considered part of Christianity and all that. So there is just not the graphic description of what hell is, whereas in Islam it is mentioned all over the Quran again and again and again. In Christianity, it is rather a fringe. There are fringe preachers who focus on hell and to tell people about hell and who warn about hell. And in medieval cultures, for example, in medieval Christianity, it was there was more of an emphasis on hell. In fact, we have literature which kind of describes a fantasy depiction of hell, and we do have that, but it is just not part of mainstream Christian history and teachings. So there is that difference between Christianity and Islam. In Islam, we all know it's insane.
I mean, like, I used to be in school, and it was like a state school, like a normal school, and we used to sing hymns in school, like at assembly. I think it was like once a week, and we'd run, like, I used to love singing hymns because, like, I if I'm honest, like, I used to be quite jealous of how they were allowed to be happy with God. Like in mosque, no singing, no laughing. You didn't really talk about God being love, merciful and just sometimes, but it was much more about the hell and the torture. And if you mess up, he's gonna mess you up, like real hardcore. So you better not mess up. And my Christian friends would be like singing songs about Jesus's ladder. We used to be in school singing the hymns together with our little hymn book, and then one day, like, my brothers and my dad were like, "You can't sing the hymns," and I was like, "What?" But, like, we have to sing the hymns. We're at school, innit? And they were like, "Just move your mouth, don't say the words," like, because if you start saying Jesus is Christ, like how it would say in the songs, then it's guno. I don't know what your word is for guno. Then it's sinful, like, for you to say to sing those songs. And I was like, like, even this one limited pleasure, that you have around religion. It's not my religion; it's someone else's. And actually, I'm having a bit of fun singing, and you're going to take that away from me as well, because even that is sinful. Even though I'm telling you, I don't believe Jesus is the Son of God. I don't believe Christ. I don't believe any of that stuff. I believe Islam. All I'm saying is it's kind of fun for like 30 minutes once a week to sing some stuff with the rest of the people in the school in a, almost like a choir, singing these happy tunes, right? Which we don't have. And I think we have now in Islamic communities, we have like nasheeds or something. I don't know what they didn't. I don't remember them when I was growing up. Like, we certainly didn't have them.
It is awful. But, it's not an equivalent. It's awful.
It's bad. Yeah. I mean, the ones that I've seen have not been particularly engaging. But I wonder if that's because I'm ex-Muslim, and if someone had shown me them when I was a kid, maybe they would have been. But at least you get to sing, right? Like, because singing is just not.
Well, not really. You don't. It's not even remotely the same thing. I mean, I grew up in Germany too, and I've always had this great sympathy for Christianity. I still do. I still listen to Christian music. I still listen to Catholic choral compositions, and I love doing that. And I say that I don't feel any shame about it. I go
to church Christmas time sometimes with my friends, and we go sing carols.
Yeah.
I mean, none of us are
never,
Christian.
I will never
Or
believe in Christianity. I don't think I will ever believe in Christianity, but I have sympathy with that because I mean I think about it. When I was growing up and I was in Germany in school, I went to a Catholic kindergarten. These people were so nice, so loving, so good. I went to school, and one of my favorite songs was this song, which was I think it is sung by Cat Stevens, who ironically later became Yusuf Islam. I don't know if it is
I
by
went to
him.
one of his talks when I was a young kid. Went to one of his talks. I swear it was him who said you shouldn't take non-Muslims as your friends.
Yeah, amazing,
And
amazing.
and I was like 11 or 12, and they asked if you had questions at the end of the talk, and so I put my hand up, and then they called on me, and then I said, but because I'm 11, my 11-year-old voice, but if we're not allowed to have non-Muslims as friends, how can we convert them? And that was my legitimate question, right? Which really speaks to the level of indoctrination, doesn't it? Like that, 11 years old, I'm kind of talking about converting people, and then he was like, "No, we're not saying you can't communicate with non-Muslims, but you know they shouldn't be your inner circle. They shouldn't be your best friends." And then my dad gave me like £1 for asking the question because it was he felt very proud that his son was
Great, amazing.
doing something brave and bold in mosque. Yeah. Sorry, you were talking about Cat Stevens. I completely interrupted you.
No problem. It's a nice memory to add. Well, there was a song, "Morning Has Broken," and that was always my favorite song in school, and it was a
good song. It was a good song.
It was a very nice song. And I have been singing that in my head for ever since then. You know, I still listen to it. I still sing it sometimes because I just loved the sentiment, and I always found it so great. And I always thought, why don't
you should listen to Carol of the Bells? Carol of the Bells is like the best hymn out there. You can't sing it though, but you should listen to it because you have to be in a choir to sing it. Sorry, where was your story? You were carrying on. So Morning Has Broken.
No, I was just repeating the same thing that you were saying. So I was just really, I always appreciated those things, those sentiments that Christians share, that Christian kids share, that you grew up with, the songs that you sing, and I always thought, man, it must be great to grow up with that stuff. But I had a similar experience. We had with our school when I was still I was in second grade or so, I don't know. And we had this Turkish teacher come by from Turkey who was there to teach us Turkish immigrants in Germany about Islam. And they were there to teach us about the Turkish identity and the Muslim identity, because that's something that the Turkish state actually promotes and supports, that they have this organization in Germany which tries to prevent the Turkish youth from assimilating and integrating into German society. And there, I learned these things. I learned the same things. I learned about how we are the right ones. We are first Muslim, then Turk, and then not German at all. It's just what we are. And then we cannot trust them. We cannot be too close with them. They are wrong. They will corrupt us and all that. And I learned that as a child, while I'm going to school, surrounded completely by Germans who are Christians. It is insane what the indoctrination that is still going on. By the way, it's not just something of that time.
It's really weird because I think maybe 90% of my brain didn't feel like they were corruptors, that they were evil. They were just my friends. But then I do remember, when I was trying to get more Muslim because I thought God would get rid of my gayness. Then I remember, two girls in my school, Rebecca and Sobia, having an argument. I'm 15 years old at this time, right? And I can still remember their names. So Rebecca and Sobia are having an argument, and they're both Muslim. And I turn to them and I say, I can't believe I said this. Why are you arguing with each other? You're both Muslim. If you want to have an argument with Sajna. That's my Islamic logic. That's just flipping crazy, isn't it? That's flipping crazy. And so I think something happened when I tried to go deeper because I wanted to not be gay. And I thought, really, if I subscribe to this really hard, if I really make my faith strong, then God will purge me of this melody. Then I saw them more as a threat. I didn't see them more as a threat. Then I saw that God had issued this commandment around not trusting them, and I sought to instruct others because as Muslims, we have to correct other people's wrong. We're not allowed to mind our own business, essentially. We have to correct everybody else who's doing wrong stuff. It's a duty for you to point out other Muslims are doing something wrong and tell them what it is they're doing wrong. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to finally give you a moment. You said, I'm sorry, I've never talked about it with you. I haven't really asked you about it. About Free Hearts, Free Minds. You work on that with Yasmin Mohammed, I believe. Can you just say that for me?
Yeah. So I guess there's a couple of things I do as an activist which are kind of at the forefront. So one of them is I'm a spokesperson for the Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain. There's also an international ex-Muslim coalition, so I'm on that as well. Like a number of us kind of started that organization up, and CEMB was one of those organizations that did that. The other, so that's kind of like the first thing that I do, or one of them, and the other thing is, conversely, is taking up way more of my time, which is Free Hearts, Free Minds, actually. So most of my effort is directed at that at the moment. So I work as a therapist and a coach for people. So Yasmin Mohammed started up an organization. We were having a conversation, I think it's like 3 years ago now. I can't believe how fast that went. And, we were talking about the inability for apostates in Muslim majority countries to have access to mental health, and often the depression or anxiety that they might be experiencing was due to living in a society that would punish their apostasy, either through legislation or through social ostracism. So we started up Free Hearts, Free Minds, where people come to us and then they're put in touch with me. I put them through a 6-week program that helps to support them and really help them work through whatever it is that they're going through. And I think for most of the people who come to us, there's a lot of suicidal ideation going on by that time. So there's a lot of international ex-Muslim groups, but the people who come to us tend to not have the strength to step into those kind of groups at that point in time, because it's quite a that's quite a bold thing to do, even though you're doing it through an anonymous social media. If you're living in Saudi, or if you're living even in Dubai or Pakistan, people can reach a point of such abject paranoia because of anxiety, depression, and stress, that they are so hesitant to even reach out to these other groups that are long established. So because I work as an activist as well, I think there's a unique component there that I'm able to put them in touch with other networks that allow them to start building a social network for themselves. And then 6 weeks down the line, people are in a very different place. So you can read some of the testimonials on the website, which is freeheartsfreeminds.com. And you'll be able to see that people have moved from, some very dark spaces into a place where they start to exercise and realize the agency that they have in their lives. So sometimes people really lose connection with the fact that they're able to influence the way that their life is running, particularly when you're feeling depressed or having suicidal thoughts. And this work is about connecting them with that agency, and we do homework between sessions. We pick them up next sessions where they talk about what it was they were doing and how it impacted their life. And then over that 6-week period, they're in a very different space. So it's really important work. It's funded completely by donations. So if people want to support our work, they can go across to the website and take a look. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm hoping that you'll put my handle in there. And you can follow me that way. I don't have a YouTube channel. Could think of nothing worse. It seems like a lot of work. So I tend to appear on other people's YouTube channels, having conversations, and doing like activism work through that.
I thought it was very. I thought it was a very nice and easy thing to have a YouTube channel, but it really takes all of your time, all of your energy. It's really hard to do. But I appreciate it.
It feels like a beast you have to keep on feeding as well, isn't it? It's like this, it's just non-stop once consumption. So I think.
Well, I believe in what I'm doing. It's just sometimes you're really fighting to keep it up, to have something there to keep it going, and it gets hard sometimes. But and forget about me. Great. It's really great to hear about the help, the help that you're providing, the activism. I don't know. It's people are really in so much need to have someone or some people out there who will help them out of that situation, because I mean, trauma is really something that many people are not really aware of, the extent of it, the effects of it, It's really
I
great that
think it
you're in this
was.
field.
I think also there's this difference, isn't it, for people like you and me who are ex-Muslims in the West, and anyone who's followed my story probably knows that I don't have a family anymore. That I was disowned for about 10 years, and then there was some reconnection, but it just has never really worked out, right? So, but I'm surrounded by a Western liberal democracy. I'm able to make my own family, and for me there's a distinction between relatives on the one hand and family on the other, which is what I've created for myself. So I think when you think about ex-Muslims in Muslim majority countries, it's a completely different experience in many aspects. Yeah, so, and some of them do carry over, but it's just the gravitas of being in a community that is majority Muslim and is living its life by Sharia is completely different. I remember, Ridwan, even the idea of sending your children to school and they're being taught Muslim stuff, and you can't unlearn that to your children because they can't go into school and be like, Daddy said this isn't true, or Mummy said this isn't true, right? And so instances of clients who talk about, my child came home and tells me to do things because I'm a mum, because I'm a woman. And that's what they're teaching their child at school, or your mum should do this, she's a woman, it's her job. Not being able to challenge that, because if your child goes back to school and says, no, it's not true that women should do the cleaning and cooking, God didn't say that, well, then everybody gets in trouble. So, that dynamic is just havoc emotionally. So affording people a space where they can articulate and discuss and talk about and explore these issues is such an important thing.
You mentioned the website is Free Hearts, Free Minds, right?
Yeah, freeheartsfreeminds.com.
Freeheartsfreeminds.com, everybody. Some people have been asking. Freeheartsfreeminds.com. You can visit it there. Thank you so much. Some people have actually pointed out, said Jimmy has a very soothing voice. I bet he's being very helpful. And
there's actually a testimonial. Somebody talks on the website about how soothing my voice is. But yes, great. Actually, I use my voice a lot in my practice. We do work around, meditative or relaxation work as well in those sessions.
That's great. Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I feel like it was so long overdue. I hope your homophobia has reduced a little bit.
It has. Actually, you have impressed me in such a way. This conversation went so well that I have started rethinking my homophobia, and I feel like I could maybe look past your gayness and maybe talk to you again in the future.
Exactly, as opposed to having thoughts about how I should be killed and legislating for
Of course, which is only for the better of society. Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, just kidding, of course. Thank you so much, Jimmy. I really appreciate having you here. I really
honestly, it was really a pleasure. I'm pleased that we got to speak. I've been following your work for quite some time. I really enjoy your videos. Maybe 4 hours was a long video to have with that dude, but I certainly enjoyed the first 2 hours of it. I really appreciated the challenges that you were making, and I think it's so important that people like yourself, like myself, I know it takes a lot of courage. I know it's exhausting. I know the emotional toil that it generates. Yeah, because I remember what life was like before I was an activist. I remember the sense of pressure that social media brings when you're in this community, and how that manifests in my body, actually, and the way that I have to work through that and take care of myself. So, it's such a pleasure to be here and talk to you, and the work you do is really appreciated.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. I have no words. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that very, very much.
And thank you everyone for watching as well.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thank you so much again, Jimmy. I appreciate. I believe everybody appreciates the work that you do. We will do so much more. I hope to speak to you again in the future. It would be always a pleasure. I think your commentary is invaluable. Thanks, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic day. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Stay well, and as always, stay away from Islam.
Take care. Goodbye.
Okay. For the moment, I'm still live. I don't know when I will be offline.
Somebody said 4 hours.